education that we haven't talked about as well.
Okay. You mentioned other staff. Are there other staff that's part of the Ottawa Food program, or is it really the coordinator who kind of handles most of it?
Well, in the past, we had a health educator that focused on a lot of general wellness, chronic disease prevention programs. So she was pulled in to help when we would go out to senior programs because a lot of the participants don't want to wait in line for one person to process their vouchers when we're there. And so that health educator would come along. We also had a full-time health promotion clerk who did a lot of the back and forth, the paperwork, the registration. She would also be there those days with us. She's no longer employed with us. We didn't have the funding after the cuts to keep her. And so she retired, 30-year employee. And that other health education spot now is also vacant after the cuts. And so that's another thing we'd be looking at is what staff do we send out to do the program implementation.
So I guess I'd like to go back to my previous question. If the program is so vital and so critical, then why cut the gleaning and publicly announce it? And why cut Senior Project Fresh, you know, and make such a huge deal about it? Like why not come back to the board or the finance committee and report that?
We've been saying for a while that there wasn't enough money to do this.
But I'm asking a specific question. Why not come back to the finance committee or the board and explain the need and then ask for a specific amount of funding or something like that?
Well, when I was at a recent meeting, or the meeting on the 26th, the commissioners here, Commissioner Zylstra specifically said, if we're all about supporting Ottawa Food, you all said on the record that you were in support of Ottawa Food. He said, why don't we earmark the money to support them right now? And you guys voted it down.
But I guess you still didn't really answer my question, but I'll move on.
I'm sorry,
you were at that. So you were asked that, you were at that meeting. Do you remember other board members speaking about Ottawa Food?
Yes. And I know that there had been questions to me about how much money would specifically be needed. Mm-hmm. And I stand by my comment at that time that the answer was complex. And at that point, I would not be able to specifically give you a dollar amount because at that time, I did not know if our budget was truly going to be cut by 50%. And if that was the case, the person who was currently our our health educator assigned to Ottawa Food would no longer be the staff person in that position because of seniority, because of HR. I don't know if I want to say the word rules, but whatever it might be, it would have been a different person. And so if it was a point, for example, at that point, our coordinator was a 0.9 FTE. With our funding cut, the only health educator we have in health education now to cover all of our issues, suicide prevention and chronic disease prevention, all of the work that we do, we have a 0.6. So and like I said that day, it's impossible to make a 0.9 out of a 0.6. And that 0.9 would have to address more than just Ottawa Food. Because when I asked that day, how would you guys like me to prioritize between all of these different issues? Is it more important to say, oh, we shouldn't think about suicide prevention because we need to feed people, or we shouldn't think about feeding people because we need to focus on suicide prevention? These are all critical issues in our community, and the county has the funding to support it. And that's why we've been vocal and asking for this.
So I guess if I could just kind of go back a little bit then. So you're saying, you know, at that meeting, you didn't know the exact details. That I kind of understand, like that was one of the final budget meetings and we had been talking about that for weeks and there's a lot of complexity. But why not come back to the finance committee as soon as you had that information?
Adeline Hambley has been in communication with Administrator Gibbs with a lot of information about the funding and about other options. For example, the potential need to close the Hudsonville office because of some of these needs that she's specifically laid out.
You're kind of changing the question. No. I'm asking, why didn't you, so you had a question back on September 26th. We were asking about Ottawa Food.
Right.
I believe the board was really clear in saying, like, we want to prioritize this program. If you need funding, please come back. We will make sure it's prioritized. I think that actually might have been an exact quote. So you didn't exactly know in September 26, but then you did figure it out. And then you didn't come back to the finance committee? Is that right?
Once the cut was made,
Is that right?
can I explain myself?
Kind of looking for a yes or a no answer, but go ahead.
No, I did not, we did not come back then.
Okay, but
what
why
did-
not? That was my question is,
Because the Ottawa Food Board, not even board, the full Ottawa Food Committee
Mhm.
took a vote that based on the cuts that health education received and the fact that right then we did not have a 0.9 coordinator for Ottawa Food to pause Ottawa Food operations. And so that's what happened
Okay.
because Ottawa County Department of Public Health does not run quote unquote Ottawa Food.
right,
And so just for example, you know, the press release that was put out, that was not a health department press release. So even though the response that came back was directed at the health department and our staff, that was from Ottawa Food, that was nothing that the health department approves or
Right.
makes a vote over.
So just so
So-
I'm aware, and maybe the commissioners as well, the board at Ottawa Food is comprised of 2 health department members, you being one of them.
Correct.
Community Action House has 2 members,
Correct.
of which they receive a significant amount of funding from the county. And MSU Extension has 1 member as well,
Yep.
which also receives a substantial amount of funding from the county. So you're saying that the members of the county health department, MSU Extension, and Community Action House felt that it was important to cancel these programs and tell all of the members of Ottawa Food that they had to be canceled, and then, you know, shut down the gleaning and shut down the Senior Project Fresh, even though you know it's critical.
The word cancel was never used, it was pause. And that is what we're doing right now is taking time to pause. Because we're in a situation where it's going to take time to figure out. And yeah, we can't, for example, Senior Project Fresh, we can't run a program if we don't have the staff capacity to do it. And I do also want to add that I am a member of the Ottawa Food Advisory Board, but I am a non-voting member.
Okay, so do we know who the voting members are?
Everyone else that's on the board. So
Okay,
we have a member from Shape Corporation. We have someone from our Pathways program, MSU Extension, Community Action House.
did you make these people aware that the board wanted to make this a priority and had specifically told you in public and in writing to make it a priority?
They're aware, yes.
And so they decided to suspend the programs, tell their members that they were being paused, and then go to the media with it?
Correct. There wasn't funding to,
And you,
they paused based on not having a 0.9 coordinator position, and it's not available. And I didn't have the option to make that a choice because there was not enough funding in the budget to do it.
you actually were given a direct request to please come back to the finance committee, to the board, if there was a need. So did
And-
you ignore that direct request?
No, I did not. And
If you come back
our
to
health
the,
officer has been providing information about, she's been asking for weeks, and we were told to wait, that there would be funding coming. There would be a way to make it work out, and we still don't have an answer.
do you know when she asked about the Ottawa food funding offhand?
That was rolled into part of the request for closing of the Hudsonville office.
Was
Which
that the
was weeks ago.
that was related, or that was, but
It's
it
related
sounds
because
like,
the $60,000 in savings that we would have if we aren't paying for the Hudsonville office rent would be rolled into helping to increase the FTE of a health educator to hopefully help get Ottawa Food rolling again. So that was
Okay.
part of what we've been waiting on to see if that piece was going to come through.
right, I spoke to some of the Ottawa food members, and it sounded like to me they think the programs are canceled. they don't think they're coming back, that they're told the funding is cut. They're
Okay, I can't speak
they're
for
done.
all of the Ottawa Food members, but I know that the words we chose to use were pause. As far as Senior Project Fresh, the portion that we provide for this year, if someone was to ask me today, that is canceled because we don't have the capacity at this point to do it.
Do you know offhand how much money the county provided to Community Action House, which, are voting members on the Ottawa Food Board, for full-time staff for Ottawa Food?
They don't have full-time staff, to my knowledge, that focus on Ottawa Food.
Okay. How about MSU Extension? Can you explain maybe their involvement, like how they're helping Ottawa Food?
Yes, part of the Senior Project Fresh program requires us to provide some nutrition education. And so one of their nutrition educators, and has been a partner for, I think, as many years as we've been involved, comes out to some of the sites with us when they're available and provides the nutrition education to seniors prior to them receiving their vouchers.
Okay.
They also serve on, gosh, over the past years, they've been involved in our work with obviously supporting local growers, local agriculture.
So that is part of their role, yes. And so as far as I understand, Senior Project Fresh, the funding for the vouchers comes from the state. And then those vouchers are then given to people more elderly people in the community.
Sometimes we get the funding from the state. We've also received funding from other Ottawa Food partners that have been involved in our work that have then given additional funding so we can purchase more vouchers for seniors.
Nice, that's great. Do you know offhand why MSU Extension didn't pick up part of that project or continue it? I mean, they're part of Ottawa Food. One MSU Extension member is a voting member in Ottawa Food. Why they?
No, I can't speak for.
We have someone from MSU Extension join us, please. Thank you, Lisa. You can take a seat, Lisa. Thank you. Welcome, James.
I was expecting this conversation next week, so I'll do my best, as you know, in my interim role.
Thank you. We can bring it back next week if we need to.
No,
That's
it's fine.
okay.
I'll share that. So I have 5 counties that I manage to the north of here, and we are involved with Project Fresh. It's a project that appears in multiple counties across the state of Michigan. We play a very similar role in the majority of counties that we support that program, and that is to provide the education portion of the program that enables them to spend their voucher more effectively and efficiently. Historically, and I'll just back up a little bit, I have been with Extension for 5 years. So I know that prior to my time, there have been instances in certain counties where we have taken the lead as an agency in that program. We have not done it in any of my current counties for many years. Could it happen in the future? Potentially. I will share that just in relation to one of your other questions earlier, that none of the county funding directly supports our community nutrition instructors. They are funded through a USDA grant through SNAP Education. So for that specific grant, there is an expectation that we're involved in community food initiatives. And I pulled some data yesterday, so I'm, forgive me if it's 1 or 2 off the official numbers, but I think we have about 161 community coalition groups, food-related coalition groups that we partner with across the state in 64 counties. So our relationship with Ottawa County is certainly nothing unique or unusual. I will say it's been, from what I understand, a very productive partnership over the years. We've been on board since the inception of Ottawa Food, one of the 45 member agencies. And yes, one of our staff sits on the advisory board at the moment.
Did you find out anything from that staff member about, the Ottawa Food Program, or what kind of involvement MSU has? MSU Extension?
Yeah, I have a document actually, because in my conversation, when I noticed that we'd been pulled off the agenda on Friday, I was a little surprised, and I was on, I think, page 225 of your board packet trying to figure out if it was just an oversight in the agenda and we were in the packet. But at that moment, Administrator Gibbs called to say we had been removed from the agenda today, and could I prepare a document to outline the relationship between MSU Extension and Ottawa Food? So I have almost a final draft that I plan to send you this afternoon, kind of, again, anticipating more conversation next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't have it in front of me, but we, as was just shared, we're involved in Senior Project Fresh, we're involved in school programs, we have a role to play in just health and nutrition education in any environment, from seniors to infants to school age.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we'll look forward to seeing that. I think part of the reason for some of the requests is looking at the different funding sources available for something like Ottawa Food. It looks like there's several different groups that are all kind of part of it. So just trying to get a good handle on what is really needed and what we need to do moving forward, and then getting that data. And I expect we'll get, more information and more data this week. And I know it's Thanksgiving, so but we'll be, working hard to come back and chat more. But thank you, James. Commissioner